All right, so we will like to kick off today's session with our topic for today, and we will add on a supplemental topic on the SOAP. So today's topic is going to be rank order list. How are you going to be ranking your programs? And we will touch on SOAP and post-match as well. I'm Dr. Amar Khan, Iqbalian 2007. And with me, we have Dr. Sharam Maroof, who is the assistant professor at the Illinois City University, and he is intricately involved in selecting candidates, residency interviews, of course, this whole process, and his views will be valuable today. And those of you who have followed us before, and you know how valuable of a resource he is for us. So yeah, a couple of things just to kick start this session. Rank order list, fairly important. Make sure you have your rank order list appropriately ranked. And that basically depends on what is your preference. And I'll let our chief guest, Dr. Maroof, you have the floor.
Thanks, Dr. Khan. Thank you for having me. So our topic regarding rank order list, we should divide into two topics, I guess: do's and don'ts of the rank order list. So I'll start with the do's of the rank order list, and how should we actually think about ranking our programs that we have interviewed. Always some big questions around those three topics, right? So first big area for interest is the sponsorship of visa. So what visa is the program sponsoring? Is it sponsoring J1 or H1 visa? So let's dig into this topic a little bit more. So as you all know, with J1 visa, the process of green card and citizenship is prolonged. After doing a training, residency, and fellowship, you have to do a waiver, and then you apply for green card and things like that. So the process towards US green cardship through H1B is a little lengthy, but historically speaking, and the J1, historically speaking, and that holds true even to this day, J1 has been more conducive towards fellowship. For example, you are on J1 visa, you do your residency training, you are likely to get it's easier for you to get a fellowship straight out of your residency training. While you are on J1 visa, the fellowship would also sponsor a J1 visa, and you'll 6 years or 7 years, you'll be done with your fellowship and things like that. And then you can apply for waiver and your green card and things like that. That being said, it is not impossible. It is not nowhere near impossible that you will not be able to get a fellowship on H1 visa. All of that information that you need to have is like, how hard is it to get a fellowship on H1 visa if a program is offering you H1 visa? There are some programs in US who have great track records of offering their own in-house candidates for H1B visa, even in fellowship. For example, I can talk to you about Cook County Hospital, Chicago. There are many other hospitals like that. They would offer H1B visa for your residency, and they would, after you're done with residency, if you're a good candidate, they will offer H1B visa for your fellowship as well, and they would even help you get the green card, process files, and things like that. So the visa status helps in a sense that you need to know that yes, it is easier to get fellowship on a J1 visa. It is not impossible to get a fellowship on H1B visa. So it depends on your preference. If your preference is, yes, I want to get into the US system, I want to make things easy for me, that I don't want to have to hassle with the waiver process and things like that, and I would deal with fellowship as it comes, definitely go for H1B programs. Even if you want to do fellowship, you definitely have to work harder and have your CV prepared in a way that you are able to show them, even after 2-3 years of working as a hospitalist, that, yeah, I'm a great candidate. I've been doing this research. My goal has always been to pursue fellowship in this specific career. So you have to be very dedicated and motivated, and you have to work harder if you have to get a fellowship on H1B visa. So you have to think about those lines. On the flip side, if I talk about J1 visa, yes, it is easier to get fellowship on J1 visa. Yes, it is harder to go. It takes a little longer to get the green card and eventual residency, eventual citizenship in US, but it is not a make and break. For example, these days there have been so many places around the US that are great to live, and they just offer waivership. For example, even the downtown, like Chicago downtown, is also a waiver area. People don't understand that. If you get a job in a Chicago downtown area, it is considered as underserved area because it's the number of population versus the number of physicians that are there. So waiver is not that big of an issue that you should sway away from finding a fellowship and going directly towards green card and say, oh man, it's going to be so hard to get a green card afterwards. It's not like that. So it's actually a middle way. So now the ball is in your court. If you have few programs who offer H1B visa and you have few programs who offer J1B visa, J1 visa, you have to really think long and hard on which one to choose. If you have a program which is great in sponsoring H1B visa, they have some in-house fellowships, then the question is straightforward. That program is great. You can do both. That's not a problem. But if you have a small community program who does not have in-house fellowships and does not have a good track record of getting their or their residents actually going into big fellowship programs or even regular fellowship programs, then you really need to think about like how hard are you willing to struggle and work towards getting your fellowship eventually after you apply for a green card and things like that. So that's number one. That's a big question. Second question that pays it's kind of a sub branch of the same question. For example, there are some programs who are big university programs. Definitely they help you with fellowships, but there are few community programs who don't have in-house fellowships, but they have very strong ties with some of the fellowship training programs. And once you go into those programs, they have a very good track record of getting their residents into fellowship because they're known for a long time, and and their residents actually go into the fellowships easily. So number one would be the visa status. Number two would be the in-house fellowship that I talked about, if they have in-house fellowships or they don't have in-house fellowships. Number three would be location. For example, if your family is close by, or you have preference of living in one state versus other state, definitely it's important. If you have family in US, if you have relatives in US and you want to stay close to your relatives, yeah, that's a valid point. And if you have some programs who are decent and you get to live with your family, that's great. So that's something that you have to think about. Number four is the financial aspect. And applying for residency, the financial aspect is not that huge because by and large, the salary that you get in the residency program is almost similar. But there are a few factors that do affect. For example, if you have a family, if you're married, if you have to support a family, you do have to think on those lines. Some programs would offer you subsidized housing. So that helps you a lot in your budget. For example, there's few programs who would give you an apartment in New York in $700, right? $700. There's no way you're going to get an apartment in $700 in New York. So those programs do give you subsidized housing. There are many other programs throughout the US who have subsidized housing, and that really gives you a huge benefit as far as the budget is concerned. And the other aspect is some programs do offer moonlighting as a third-year resident, and that also affects your financial status. But again, that also for the moonlighting, it can only be done on the J1 as well. So H1B as well. So J1B, you can't even do the moonlighting in-house. So that's another aspect towards H1B. But in summary, those are the four topics. In my opinion, the visa status is one of the big ones. That's definitely number one. Number two is the in-house fellowships. Number three is the location. And number four is the financial well-being while you're in the training program. So I would think on those 3-4 lines while I'm choosing my rank order list.
All right, excellent. So one thing you mentioned about the visa status and what they're looking for in the future and about fellowships. So just to recap, it's not impossible if you are going for an H1B program. It's definitely not impossible. You just have to make sure you have done your research properly. If this program, you like the program, it's a good program, and they have preferably they have fellowships in-house, or alternatively, they are connected with another hospital or university center that is offering fellowships, and they are connected with it, and they have a good track record of getting their residents into fellowships, then don't be too afraid towards going the H1B route. So is that a fair assessment, Dr. Sharam?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. And a couple of other questions that come. You mentioned a couple of things regarding what they should consider while ranking. So how many programs should people feel relatively safe? How many programs should people rank that they should consider themselves relatively safe, or is there any number at all, possibly?
Dr. Khan, as we know, historically, there was a number that was thrown around, if you have 7, 8, 9 interviews, you should be safer. But I think things have changed. The number of interviews that candidates are getting, honestly, are decreasing over the years. Last year, the average number of the interviews that the candidates were getting was less than the years prior to that. And this year, I've found the same thing. There are less number of interviews that have been done. So I think there's no reason you should not rank a program which you have interviewed. If you have interviewed in 10 programs, rank all of them. Like if you don't like a program, that should be the number 10th, but rank all of them. Unless it's a really, really malignant program and you definitely would hate not to go, you definitely would hate going to the program, and you're willing to wait one more year, and you would rather wait one more year and you don't want to go into the program. Otherwise, by and large, 90% of the population, I would say every program you have interviewed, rank that program.
All right, excellent. So a question that commonly comes is that sometimes you have a communication with a program. Should you use your own preference? Should the top ranking programs be your own preference? That is a question that people do confuse about. Can you share some thoughts on that?
Yes, that was the other point I wanted to talk about. What are the don'ts of the rank order list? So in my mind, the biggest don't is and I think it's easier to fall prey to that. And I think I've seen so many people rank based on their intuition or their interaction with the program. So you should not rank the program, in my opinion, you should not rank the program based on your interaction with the program. For example, your interview day interaction with the program is for the program to assess you. That program has only one tool to assess you, is that your performance during that, or your CV, or your performance during the interview. So they will rank their candidates based on their performance, right? So that tool is for them to utilize and rank you. But you have much more tools in hand to research the program. You can look up their website. You can find out who the current residents are. You can reach out to those residents. You can ask questions from those residents. Hey, how do you feel about this program? What is the track record of this program in fellowship? And how much they support you in your research? And there are so many questions you can ask. And your answer should be based on that objective data rather than your gut feeling. Oh, that program director was so nice to me, and I think they're gonna rank me. And based on that hunch, you should not rank the program higher. They might be nice to everyone. That program director may be nice to everyone. Their interaction with you and their recommendation, we really like you, doesn't mean anything. Maybe they really like you, but I wouldn't want you to jeopardize your chances in a better program just because you feel like they are nicer and they like you. For example, I'll give you a scenario. Let's say you have a interview at Mayo, Cleveland Clinic, Northwestern, right? Mayo is number 1, Cleveland is number 2, Northwestern number 3. Your interaction with Northwestern was great. Your Northwestern, program director had emailed you back. He said, or during the interview, he had told you that, he really likes you. You are a very good candidate. And Mayo Clinic was pretty bland. They didn't really communicate much. You had an interview and you were gone. And you didn't really have a good feeling coming out of Mayo Clinic. So you go back home and you say, man, wow, Northwestern program director was so nice. And, I had such pleasant experience with them. I'll rank them number 1. No, Mayo Clinic is the number 1 program. And if they rank you higher, you should have ranked them higher, because if you don't match there, if you don't match at Mayo, if you don't match at Cleveland Clinic, if the Northwestern program director really liked you, you will still match at Northwestern program. So you will not lose your spot in Northwest program because you didn't rank them number one. All it takes for you to match there is for them to rank you higher. That doesn't matter at what level you have ranked them, unless you match in a higher program. You cannot go lower than that program. If that program has ranked you higher, you cannot go lower than that program. So your rank order list should be objective data based on what is the status of the program, in US, what's the fellowship track record, and overall, overall ranking of that program, rather than your feeling and your hunch about that program. And I think most people make that mistakes. It's natural. For example, if I'm coming back from a program and I had such good experience with all of the residents and fellows, I would feel good about that. And it's natural for me to feel inclined towards ranking that program higher. And I think I've done that personally as well. In my residency training, as well as in the fellowship, I probably had ranked programs who were probably a little lower just based on my experience. But I advise you not to do that, because your chances of matching in a higher program are still there, even if you didn't have a good experience with them.
All right, excellent. So yeah, just to recap, the program that you feel you need to go to, or the program that you really want, make a list based on that. Mark down all the, the visa issues. Have a list of your preferences. It is based on your preference that you should be ranking a program. So make sure that you rank based on your preference, and don't miss out on that. Don't think that, oh no, I'm not going to get into that program. It could just be that is the program that they also rank you higher on their own list. So make sure that you put your preference as the number one, and go about with the remainder of the list like that. Is that okay, Dr. Sharam?
Yeah, definitely. It should not be based on your hunch about how your interaction was during the program interview day. It should be objective data based on what your preferences are, based on objective data and your preferences, as we talked about. Yes, Dr. Hall.
Okay, excellent. All right. So is there a question somebody asked that if for some reason you got matched, okay, but you don't like the program, is there any way to get out of that, or that's it?
There is a way. If you don't end up, you email ECFMG that I don't want to match in that program, but that really gives you a big negative. I don't think it stays on your record, but I would really think long and hard before I reject a program. Once you start a program, you can always try to find a spot in some other program and swap with someone, rather than not going to the program. While you're a first-year resident, you can find other first-year residents and you can swap. That doesn't happen easily. Don't get me wrong, that's not easy to swap, but there are options. I would really think long and hard before rejecting a program or not showing up in a program. I think the question probably is coming from the people who have applied in match, and they have not applied. The couples who have not applied for a couples match, and they are talking about. I think that's where it's coming from. Generally speaking, there's no reason for you not to go to the program. The only reason that I can think about is probably the spouse versus one spouse matching into some state, and another spouse matching into some other state. If that's the question, that's the next step. We should talk more about the couples match and how to proceed with that.
Okay, maybe you can touch upon this. A couples match. Any strong pointers on what they should consider with their rank order list?
Dr. Khan, this is a very personal choice, the couples match. And historically speaking, it was easier to get couples match. But in this day and age, honestly, it's getting harder and harder and harder to get a couples match. I personally believe, and all of my friends and the people I've known have chosen a path where, you either apply simultaneously and you are willing to, if you're not matched in the same state or same city, you're willing to sacrifice that, number one. Or number two, one spouse, or you yourself or your spouse applies to a program, he applies for, you apply for, a match. And your preference should be to get matched into a program which is couples friendly. And it's easier to find that out. Once you interview there, you see there's so many couples who like husbands and wives who are working there, or seniors and juniors, and you can email them, or you can reach out to some of the residents and ask them, hey, how is your program couples friendly or not? And the person who's applying that year should try to rank the program higher, which are couples who are spouse-friendly programs, and then your spouse can apply next year, then most likely you'll be able to match there. That's number one factor you should think about. And number two, you should obviously think about your credentials and what kind of programs are you regular. For example, if one of the partners is really highly qualified, let's say 260s, 270, right? And the other is, 230s or something like that. And your chances of getting matched to a, high, highly ranked US residency program is higher, and then your partner, unfortunately matching to the same program is lower. So you could consider, you try to opt for the programs who are in the middle and are couples friendly, so your spouse can be matched there next year. But that being said, it's still very much likely that if you end up in a program and you are a great candidate and you work hard and you show your work ethics and they like you, they're more likely to support your spouse as well. Because if they like working with you, they were gonna think they're gonna like working with your partner as well. So definitely it depends on your credentials, it depends on your hard work, but definitely, couples match, it's way easier to be, to apply to, a program where your spouse is already there rather than applying for a couples match. In this day and age, it's really hard to go into couple match. I would really, really highly recommend matching one of the partners first, and then you apply, your spouse applies to that program.
All right, excellent. I do have one question. How do you get into a surgical residency? I think that is a little off topic, but just to quick seconds on this. Surgical residency may be a little tougher. You need to have, good experience in surgery, and make sure you make your connections, reach out to people, have, as good scores as you can, as usual, and network and, apply to programs. And there are also preliminary positions in surgery, a lot of them that you can also apply for, or transitional years that people look to apply for. Make sure you broaden out your when you're applying for locations. Make sure you don't only apply just for surgery, you apply for other specialties as well, so that you don't get unmatched. So that's a good thing anybody could do. So another question: any idea about the different states if you have to choose financially? If you are with a family who is not working, is it possible in all states? So basically, this is about states that are expensive or not. I think you didn't talk about this a little bit, but I'm thinking, if you have, like, let's say 5 kids already, right? Then you have problems with finances. Otherwise, if you do start your residency, it shouldn't be too much of a problem. You should be able to, go get by if you just a couple or even one kid. You have a huge family, that is probably a different story, that you may have a lot more expenses. Otherwise, I think even with a resident salary, you should be able to get by, and it shouldn't be a big problem.
So yeah, you yourself should be able to get by on a resident salary. You and your spouse probably are, definitely are going to go, get by. But the point I was trying to make was the people who have to support families back home. For example, your parents or your siblings. If you have to support them and you're considering that in your resident salary, you should be able to support them somewhat. In that case, yes, the financial aspect does play a part. Two things, if you have to, highlight a little bit more. If you are on J1, your spouse can work on J2. Your spouse can apply for EAD, and your spouse can work on J2. For example, even if if she's let's say MBA or a pharmacist or some other field, and she wants to work, your spouse can work on EAD on J2. But your spouse cannot work on H1B. If you are H1B, your spouse cannot work for H4. So that's one aspect of finances that you have to look towards. Number two, regarding states, yes, there are some states and some programs who are much more economical to live at. For example, if there are community programs in suburb located or some states, for example, they're much more economical to live at. Where, in contrast, if you're going to live in New York or Chicago or Dallas or big cities like that, it's going to be a little bit more expensive because housing is going to be expensive. So yes, it does play a part. Which city are you going to? And New York, I can give you an example. New York is historically very expensive to live at. Everyone knows that. By and large, the programs in the New York do pay you more. So they pay you, like, let's say I'll give you rough numbers. They pay you 10,000 more than the programs that are not in New York. For example, compared to a program in Detroit, a program in New York will pay you 10,000 more a year, which is substantial. it comes down to $800-900 more per month, but your expenses in New York are actually more than that. So even though they are paying you more in New York, the lifestyle or the amount of saving you can actually do on that expenses is less than if you're in Detroit or some other city. So yes, it is important. But as Dr. Khan said, like if you're alone, and if all you have to support is yourself and your spouse, and even if you have kid and things like that, then it shouldn't be too much of a worry. But if you are planning on saving, and if you have to support families back home, then definitely you should think on these lines.
All right. Okay, good. Question. It's a little off topic. Radiology compared to internal medicine, which is more competitive? I mean, definitely radiology, I think currently is still more competitive. That may change down the line because AI seems to be coming in. I'm not sure if people are apprehensive about that, but that is a concern for some people in the future. For example, nuclear medicine was hot, 10 years ago, but that's gone down a lot. So yeah, these things could be changing. Next question. What's your opinion on ranking good university H1B programs of neurology above IM J1 small community programs? What's your opinion on neurology as a practice specialty vis-a-vis compensation lifestyle compared to IM specialties? Okay, yeah, what do you think?
So I think this is a very good question. I think historically the Pakistanis have considered IM to be the holy grail, and go into IM, and they have kind of neglected other specialties. In my opinion, it might be wrong. In my opinion, and neurology is one of those fields. Neurology, psych, those are the fields, and pediatrics those are the fields that I think not enough people apply to. It all depends on what you want to do. If you are interested in neurology, honestly, there's no reason you should not pursue and go for a big university program in neurology. I'll give you examples. The career goals and career pathway from neurology are huge. It's way easier to get a fellowship in neurology. After fellowship, there's sub-specialty fellowships, and even there are some surgical tracks that you can go into. I'll give you one specific example. I have a friend right now, Dr. Fahim Sheikh. He's a neurologist. He did neuro-ophthalmology, and then he applied for interventional radiology from neurology and actually matched into a program. And he didn't go there for personal financial reasons, for family reasons. He didn't go into there. But you can actually go into interventional IR neurology from neurology if you are a great candidate. And getting into fellowships is much easier. And I'll give you examples. The neuro-ophthalmology is sub-specialized field, and it's hard to find a neuro-ophthalmologist in the whole state of Illinois outside of Chicago. So it's probably the single one who's in this, outside of Chicago is the single neuro-ophthalmologist. So it's prestigious. And if you're interested, definitely you should look towards it. And versus small community program in IM, yes, if you love IM, go there. But if you're open to other fields, neurology, psychiatry, pediatrics, those are great fields to go to. And people think about the compensation standpoint as well. Once you are done with your training, your compensation models, in this day and age, I can guarantee you the amount of money you're going to be making, it's not much different from one field versus another. It all depends on how much hard work you are willing to do. Anyone can be making the similar amount of money if they work hard. So that aspect, that if you are specialized in, I am a cardiologist or intensivist or gastroenterologist, is going to make much more money than a specialized interventional neurologist, is just not true anymore.
All right, excellent. So yeah, neurology, explore other fields. I think when we started off, we didn't have any idea there's things like PM&R, physical medicine, rehab, anesthesiology. People can get relatively easily into these fields and are sometimes actually not bad. Actually, I would prefer in hindsight. Neurology is also a great. So I have a question. As Dr. Sharam said, spouse can't work on H1B. So when they have to apply next match, they will need an independent visa.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So if you are on J1 J1 visa, and your spouse can potentially match into a program that does not even sponsor the visas, and she can work on J2 EAD based on your visa. So, for example, I'll elaborate a little bit more. You are on J1 visa. You have a wife or partner, like if you are husband, wife, or wife or husband who wants to work. Number one, if she is a physician and she wants to train into an international training program, and she can match into a program that does not sponsor visa, she can actually work on J2 EAD. And as long as you are on H1B, she can keep on working on EAD with you and in a different program. So that's the one pathway. Number two, if she has EAD, she can work in other fields. For example, if she's a pharmacist, if she is going to work in research, if she's going to work in MBA or bank or whatever. So its field is open. She'll get an EAD. Once she's on J2, she'll get an EAD and she can work. Vice versa, if you are on H1B, your wife or your spouse cannot work on H4. She will have to find a program that sponsors a visa. Yes.
Okay, so a couple of things to consider over here. So, all right, thanks for your questions. I think we should jump on to the SOAP. Hopefully nobody needs to do that. Dr. Sharm, can you give a little bit of an introduction on the SOAP? What is it? And what are the basic implications, if you may?
So basically, if you don't end up in match, there's like a window that's open for a couple of days, few days, in which the programs who have gone unmatched, they will open applications and you can apply. Those of you who are unfortunately unmatched and can apply to those programs. There's a nominal fees. I think if you have applied to match, you don't have to apply. You don't have to pay any other fees for the SOAP. If you have not done the regular match and you are applying for SOAP only, then I think there's a nominal fees that you have to submit to that. And historically, honestly, the SOAP has not been very kind to the IMGs. It's very rare that you would find a spot. If you are IMG, if you have to be brutally honest, and it's generally speaking, it is more for the people who are US grads and for some reason they were not able to apply, and or they have applied in very limited fields and now they don't require visa and they are the US grads and they can just match easily. To find a program who is going to sponsor the J1 or H1B visa as an open field is a little bit of challenge. But again, this does not mean that it cannot be done. What do you have to do for that? First of all, familiarize yourself with what the process is. It's a little complicated process, so we can't really give you bullet points on those. You have to really do some research on that. Be prepared. There are some programs who historically go into SOAPs every year, like every other year they go into SOAP. So have a list. These are the programs who are likely to go into SOAP, and you have your application and everything ready. You have your preparation. Those are the programs that you could potentially apply to, and you are ready to go. And just thinking about the possibility of you having to go to a post match gives you an idea that you should be prepared. For example, if you have not thinking about match and you're just somehow you're sure that you're going to match, and then unfortunately you hear the news that you go unmatched, you go into a little bit of a sad phase or depression or whatever you call it, and you're not ready for the SOAP. So the biggest thing is to be ready. It's a possibility, it can happen. Unfortunately, it's a reality that you might not get matched, and you should be prepared and ready to submit your application for SOAP if needs be.
Right. Just wanted to share this image because it's important just for people to have it at the back of their mind. You did not match, so unfilled list will be provided by NRMP. You can search for those programs, okay? And there's going to be, I think, an instantly check compatibility using the PCS system. So there's probably going to be a procedure in case that's needed. You will select your programs and you will apply sort of a last ditch effort for programs to get their spots filled based on, and they will again have another selection criteria based on all the people who apply. And over the next few days, there will be interviews with programs, again, an interview process potentially. So just a brief overview of this, and let me stop sharing and get back to one or two questions that we have more.
And then it does require, a lot of connection. Networking is required. So if you are going into a post-match or SOAP, unfortunately, you have to reach out to as many people as you can. If you are in groups like this or group all over the, IMG groups that you are, and you share, hey, any numbers of programs, or if you have any contacts to any programs who are going to match, unfortunately, it is the case. It does require connections.
Okay, so Dr. Afan has another question. Small H1 new program or J1 university? So I think you did touch upon this a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe you want, just clarify this question.
Yeah, this is this is a good question, and it's a question that is impactful. So big H1B, J1 university programs, what you're getting out of the program is, it's a reputable program. You get good training, and it's much easier for you to get on a fellowship for that program. So there's not a lot of wrongs in that choice. I'm a little biased towards that because I think people are much more afraid of J1B visas, H1B visas than they should be. It's challenging, but it's the days, and it depends on what your career goals are. If your career goals are, yes, you want to do a fellowship, for example, if you're motivated to do cardiology, GI, hematology, whichever fellowship you want to go to, and you're motivated and that's your life goal that you want to do a fellowship, I would highly recommend choosing a big university program like that. But if your goal is that, yes, I don't want to miss out and I want to get my green card as soon as possible, then you can compromise on the fellowship, or you can compromise on being delayed in fellowship. Then you can go for the small H1B programs. The downsides of the small programs are what? First of all, you have to know what program it is. Sometimes the new programs are really well connected. They opened up with programs who already have a lot of training programs. For example, there may be a program who's opening up I am now, and that program already has surgery or anesthesia and all other rotations, and it's very well versed with the rigors of the training. And they have a robust system. The program director is well known. If you match in that program, your chance of getting fellowships are much, much higher compared to a program which is just new. They're opening up small community, and they might offer you H1B visa, but the prospect of you getting a fellowship out of that program is much, much lower. So, honest or brutal answer, I would say prefer big university J1 program if your career goal is to get fellowship. Yes.
All right, excellent. It does depends on the goals that you have in mind. Okay. If a person is a US citizen, does their spouse have other visa options other than H1B or J1? I think you mentioned.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. So for training, the two big categories are the same. If you can get a green card before the date that you are supposed to be, for example, this was a question that was asked in the past as well. For example, if your green card application is pending and you're likely to get a green card before the start date of the program, then definitely you can work on the green card once you get it. But if you don't have green card by now, and the program is reaching out to you and asking you, what is going to be your visa status, if that program does not sponsor visa, it might become a problem. They might not rank you because you don't have visa status right now. You don't have green card, and that program cannot sponsor visa. So that will be a problem for you. If you have a program that sponsors visa like H1B or J1 or whatever, then it's not a problem. I think the problem is for the people who have applied for the green card. They're waiting to get the green card, and now they're in the application process, and the program reaches out to them because they cannot sponsor you a visa. And now where do you stand? That's a complicated question. But other than that, the big basket is still the same: H1, H1B, and J1 visas. Yes.
Okay, excellent. So a lot of visa questions, and they're very important because that makes or breaks a lot of your plans in the future. Okay, so I think we're good. Any other questions? Any other questions that we have? Okay, so all right. So J1 university fellowships, that's sort of the combination, but don't shy away from H1B programs if they're connected with fellowship programs or they have in-house fellowships. So make sure that you have done your research while you're ranking. And just again, the research comes out to be very important. You have your research in, and make sure you choose the program that you like the best, which works with your scenario the best. And in a IMG situation, don't not rank a program. Make sure you do rank a program unless you're okay and you're willing to miss out this year and move and consider the next year. Okay. All right. I think we're good. Any last words, Dr. Sharam?
Right. Best of luck, everyone. It is a challenging time, and but things would work out eventually. I keep on reminding myself and everyone that US is a land of opportunity, to be honest. If you are persistent and you hard work, you eventually will find a way to get good training program here. It all depends on your hard work. If you don't end up matching this year, apply for SOAP and be ready, and start preparation for applying next year's match, to be honest. And that's some of the topics that we were considering that we can probably talk more about in a future webinar, that what are the things that you should be doing at this point if you are planning on applying next year too. So, but again, best of luck. Last year's match results were great. Year before that, match results were good for the IMGs. So I hope this year would continue to be the same, and we'll have good success in matching our IMGs to US residency training programs.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much for joining. If you have, if you do match, do let us know. Do let us know if you are here from the Iqbali and YPC group. Do leave a message, and we would like to congratulate you. And all of you should be matching, inshallah. And yeah, do keep in touch, and we will have you on for these type of interviews in the future, so that you could share your insights and your fresh experience that you have gained through this whole process. Anyways, looking forward to talking to you guys in the future. And thank you so much. Allah Hafiz.
Allah.